freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your DFS preview for this week's Sony Open. Joining me to break it all down, Greg DuCharme is here. Hello, Greg.
What's going on, Rick? We're back in full swing. I'm fired up about it, and here we go for our first full field event of 2025.
That's right. There's going to be a cut, which is always fun and exciting. We are still in Hawaii, but at a very different golf course, this time Waialae, than we were at the plantation course at Kapalua. Before we get into that, let me do a little bit of begging, a little bit of groveling, because we are just a week away from the voting closing out. That's right. I'm talking about the best golf podcast on the Sports Podcast Awards. We are in a fight for our podcasting lives, and we need to pump those ballot boxes. So take the 30 seconds, hit the link in the description, go vote. It literally will not take you more than 1 minute, and we would much appreciate it. We are trying to add a little hardware to the mantle for 2025. So thank you very much. Link is in the description. All right, Greg. First full event, a golf course we are very familiar with. Waialae has been on the schedule for a long time. I referenced it's easy to contrast what we saw from last week. And I always like to do that because that's fresh on people's minds. The only real similarities between this week and last week is that we are in the same state. I think that is where it ends.
I think that's about right. And it's fascinating because this golf course sits at 7,044 yards as a par 70. Last week was 7,600 yards. So that's a pretty big difference. But if you look at the approach shots and where the approach shots come from, in a way, they're like longer here.
Right.
You know, there's at least far less variance. And many of the approach shots this week, first of all, none of them come from outside of 200 yards. You got the two par fives. The average approach shot on those holes is, in the 30-yard range. So guys will be reaching and they'll have shots from outside of 200 yards on some instances into those holes. But pretty much you're looking at 100 to 200 yards. Many of them coming inside of 150 yards. You're talking about 11 approach shots, including the par fives, 9 if you don't include the par fives that are less than 150. And so you end up with more full wedge shots and some iron shots as well, because you got about 7 approach shots averaging 150 to 200.
Right.
So you end up with some more typical approach shots. Iron play becomes a little more important. Putting still similar to last week, putting still very important, although the greens here are far flatter. So it's a little bit of a different test, and you start getting inside that 20-foot range and you can really fill it up because there's not a ton of break in these greens.
Yeah, that was a darn good assessment. This course in itself is flat as a pancake. I think there's only, oh my gosh, like 14 feet of elevation changes or something like that. The greens are quite flat in themselves. Josh, if you want to share my screen, I've got the scorecard up and then we can start talking about some of the stats and things. But you see the card here, par 7,044 yards, number 9, a very gettable par 5, number 18, a very gettable par 5. And then as Greg alluded to, just kind of a longer shots, especially compared to last week coming in. Also some dog legs out here, Greg. You see those those dog legs where you'll see guys try to get a little bit aggressive off the tee, but we have seen, because of the lack of distance, you don't have to be long to find success here.
No, I was interestingly looking on rickrungood.com, and you have this little section down below this where it says whether accuracy or distance is more important or more valuable. And on every hole except one, accuracy is preferred over distance.
Right.
Which I think that's very interesting. Now, what does that actually mean when we're actually selecting golfers? It doesn't necessarily mean that you want to take short hitters over long hitters. It doesn't mean you want to take accurate hitters over over long hitters, because everybody can be accurate when they have to be. So I still think there's an advantage to club head speed, not necessarily an advantage to overall distance. You can play this golf course in a very positional fashion. You can hit it to the corners of the dog legs, and you can have short to middle irons into all these greens, and you'll be just fine. You can make a ton of birdies doing that. So there's a lot of different ways to play it. I think that pans out with the winners we've seen. Grayson Murray, may he rest in peace. He won here last year. Siwoo Kim, Hideki Matsuyama, Kevin Na, Cameron Smith. You've had Justin Thomas win here. It's somewhat of a mixed bag. I think you have some good iron players. You have some putting specialists, some guys who are known for some really good wedge play and short game. It's somewhat of a mixed bag. So I think there's a lot of ways to get around this golf course successfully.
I'm glad you mentioned the variety, because that's my takeaway as well. You're going to see guys try to bomb and gouge this, and you are going to see guys take a more traditional approach to the middle of the dog leg, hit it, to the correct quadrant, and then try to make the putt. So I do like that. It does not necessarily box anybody out immediately out of the gate, which is always fun. So yeah, we have a lot of guys to talk about. I don't want to waste any more time. I want to start talking about them, Greg. So we're going to do that. But first, we are going to take a quick break. We're going to reset, and we'll see you on the other side. We are back, and there are two golfers in the $10,000 range. Hideki Matsuyama is the winner from last week at $11,000. Then Corey Connors is $10,200. Greg, let's start there. Hideki did something incredibly special last week, and Corey Connors has put up a handful of good results in a row. So which one of these guys do you want to begin with?
Well, let's just begin with Hideki because he won last week. I think there's a lot to like about Hideki. Obviously, the performance that he put on tee to green last week was exceptional. He looks healthy. The putting stroke looks great. I'm very curious to see if he rolls back with the same putter. I mean, very curious. It was
better
just after his last win, right? He was. He had one of the best putting performances of his career in Memphis. And he actually talked to Brad Faxon on Sunday morning about potentially switching putters for that round in Memphis. He didn't, but he did switch putters at the BMW the very next week and played great. So I'm at the point with Hideki where I just think he's so darn good. It's really difficult to stay away. I think it is one thing to be a little cautious about, and this is why I'd be I don't think he's a must play. I'm comfortable playing him any week, but he's not a must play. And the reason is he only has one top 10 at the Sony Open, and he's played here a lot. The only top 10 was his win, and it was the only time he gained more than a stroke putting.
Yeah. So it's a very strange course history.
Yes.
Like you said, he's played here a ton. It's not very good outside of the victory. And the victory was probably one of the best putting performances of his career, although he did something not similar, but within the ballpark last week. So I actually find Hideki to be harder to figure out this time around. You know what I mean? Like I could see this going in a variety of directions.
Yes. And I mean, that brings up a lot of questions, and we're also at a time of year where there hasn't been a ton of play. Like, right. You put any stock into the Zozo,
no,
which was in October.
It was last year, Greg. No, but it was
last year.
It was literally like 2 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, before that, his play was outstanding. It was stellar. It was a phenomenal year. But I would be. He has been hitting the ball well enough to play him any week on any golf course. But there's also been some. This isn't Scotty Scheffler we're talking about here. So I'd be fine with playing Corey Connors, who I know you like, Rick. Is that price too high? Does the pricing take out any of your early projections on Corey Conners?
So I'm so excited for this because I would love to get your opinion, because we've got Corey Conners, who's, got 3 top 10s in a row at, individual events. He's putting better. And then what we have known for years is this stat where he putts so well at Waialae. But the truth of that, Greg, is that actually the last 2 years he's been miserable on these putting surfaces. So now you're getting like the full priced Corey Conners at a course that, yes, he technically in his career putts really well at, but how much stock should I be putting into those 7 strokes that he's lost in his last 8 rounds here? That the high price, which he rarely pays off, I'll pull that up in a second, along with those putting numbers, does have me a little bit concerned.
Well, there's a couple things here. First of all, take his course history out of it for a second. Last week, I said Corey Conners was a very safe play, which I liked, depending on your lineup construction. And that turned out to pan out whether you were going for safe or going aggressive. He was just the right play. But the reason for that is because his ball striking has been so consistent. I mean, you have to go back a long ways when he had a poor ball striking week, like a really long, maybe like Memphis wasn't great, but he hasn't lost a full stroke in his ball striking since the 2023 Memorial.
Yeah. Okay.
So his ball striking is extremely reliable. And I think his putting has gotten a lot more reliable as well.
Agreed.
Even though, it hasn't been stellar, he has definitely gotten back to a place where it's neutral. It's found level ground. And then you see performance like last week where he gained 7 strokes, more than 7 strokes. So now let's get back to this week. Did he putt well those first 3 years because the greens don't have a ton of break? Did he putt poorly the last 2 starts because his stroke was out of order? And if there's not a lot of break and you can't hit your line, you're not going to make anything anyway. I think Corey Conners has his putting figured out to a place where he at least has it started online. I don't know if he's going to get hot, but I don't feel like it's bad. So I think you could play. I'm not in a place where I want to play both of these guys. I think it's a difficult decision. I probably lean more towards Corey Conners than Hideki, which is crazy. I feel like I'm disrespecting Hideki. I don't mean to do that. That feeling coming off the win last week, Corey Conners is still on the up and up. Hideki, maybe we got to wait till like Riviera or some a bigger golf course for me to get back on Hideki.
Happy birthday, Corey Conners. It's your 33rd birthday. Go out there and have yourself a good week. The 9K range here, Greg, is led off by Russell Henley. Then we get Tom Kim, Keegan Bradley, Ben On, and we round it out with Robert McIntyre, Maverick McNeely, Sahith, and Si Woo Kim. Where are we headed here?
Oh, this is brutally difficult. It's brutally difficult to select and parse through. If you wanted to, you could feel very comfortable sitting Hideki and Corey Conners because this range is so strong.
Agreed.
Russell Henley has a great record here. He's at 9,900. The recent performance hasn't been, what it was during the middle of the season. It hasn't been top 10 player in the world material, but at the same time, it's like Tour Championship, President's Cup, Hero World Challenge. He didn't play any fall events. He hasn't really played anything. And so what I like to do in these kind of events early in the season is look at more of a wide range. And from 125 to 150, 175 to 200 on the putting green, there are a few players better than Russell Henley. So from that kind of analytical standpoint, he's nearly a must play.
He won this all the way back in 2013, and then he's piled up a bunch of top 20s recently. And actually the stretch that he's in right now, last 4, T4, T32, runner-up, T11. That's basically his best stretch. At the Sony Open, that runner-up, of course, was in a playoff to Hideki Matsuyama. So played well enough to get into a playoff, but lost it there to Hideki. So the Russell Henley stuff is great.
I think Keegan Bradley coming off a strong performance at the Sony last year, very strong performance. nearly won the event. A pretty strong performance, tied 15th at the Century. Played great at the Hero World Challenge as well. Keegan seems to have things clicking on all cylinders. He seems to be motivated. I like what he has going on with the putter right now. I think Keegan's a guy that's really hard to look past at 9,500.
Yeah, so I think that I am probably going to be heavily invested in Keegan until we get through Torrey Pines, I think, because at some point the Ryder Cup focus, I think, is going to start really taking over towards the end of the year. But there are this kind of like a total driving golf course, really good spot for him. Torrey, he's played well at. I think that getting because if you look at his last handful of starts here, Greg, it's like played well at the Century, played well at the obviously won the BMW Championship, played well at the Hero World Challenge, played well at the President's Cup. Like, sure, I'm with you here. Let's go get Keegan.
Yeah, and even before that, he wasn't missing cuts.
Right.
You know, he was just he had a couple of events where he didn't putt great, or something was just a little off, and the finish position doesn't warrant. But it's not bad play. So nothing's broken with Keegan's game right now, and I think quite the contrary. I think things are kind of working together in a really nice trajectory.
I think that Tom Kim is very interesting. I think Robert McIntyre is interesting. Like you said, I think there's a real viability to starting your lineup here and getting access to a couple of these guys, especially because when we get there, I also think the 7K range is pretty packed. So like we're going to have an opportunity to I think there's like 40 really solid options. We just got to start making lineups with those guys. But anybody that we have to talk about in the 9K before we move on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there is. And like you said, I think Robert McIntyre's phenomenal. You take a look at his record, it's hard to ignore the way that he's done it. But the guy that I'm really focusing in on is actually Maverick McNeely. So let's take the analytical. It's the early part of the season. We don't know what's going on. We got to look at things from a wide range. Well, Maverick McNeely is a very good putter, which is important here. He's typically very good around the greens, but what he's done lately is clearly fix his iron play.
Yeah.
We saw him at the RSM Classic where he won. He had a very strong performance with his approach play. And then last week we finished tied 8th. He gained over 4 strokes approaching the green. And I believe it was Friday's round. He led the field in strokes gained approach, and he didn't do it it wasn't little wedges. The Century is an event where the numbers can misguide you a little bit at times because you have so many short wedges. But if you look through McNeely's rounds, he was doing it from outside 150 yards and stuffing it in there. It's very clear to me that he made a big improvement in that area. You combine that with his putting performance and newly found confidence, 4 straight events, he's finished inside the top 20. Aside from the Zozo where he withdrew, it's 5 straight events. So phenomenal stuff from McNeely. I think he's really hard to ignore.
Hard to ignore for McNeely. Hard to figure out for Sahith. Producer Josh asking us about Sahith here, and I almost just kind of shrugged my shoulders. $9,100. His week at the Century wasn't great. He lost on approach. He lost around the green. He lost with the putter. The finished T36 there. We talk about how difficult he is to figure out. Greg, like what do you do with Sahith?
You probably play him in one and done. I mean, a lot of the Century numbers come from the first round.
Yeah,
he really, Ray. You start to.
It's true.
At least in the total, he played a lot better rounds 2, 3, and 4. You look at his strokes gained total; they improved each round after the first round.
Right.
That because I'm looking at this as I go through my normal process, and I'm like, I'm just going to stay away from the gala. But now that you're asking, thinking about that, this may be the best opportunity to play him. He's only 9,100 in a full field event.
I do like this
good spot.
I do like to see that so he lost like 5 strokes to the field in round 1 and then beat the field and got better every round after that, which is usually a good sign. Okay. we're going to continue. There's a lot to get to. We'll go to the 8s, the 7s, and the 6s, but first we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
At CBS Sports Golazo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Whoa.
And all day long!
24/7.
10 men in the 8K range. JT Poston, Taylor Pendrith, Austin Eckler, Kurt Kitayama, then Davis Thompson is right in the middle at 8,500. Luke Clanton back in the field at 84. Brian Harmon, Ben Griffin, Harry Hall, and Sepp Straka round out this range. Greg, what do you want to do with these fellas?
How do you separate these guys? There's so many impressive stories. But I'm going to start on a similar theme that I did in the 8K range with Maverick McNeely, and that's going to Harry Hall. I was so impressed with Harry Hall last week. And you see a tied 8th finish. He missed a short putt on 18 that would have gotten him into the top 5. And perhaps that's saving us a little bit here in salary. He's down at 8,100. It's very clear to me that he too has worked on his ball striking. And for a guy that lived on the putting in the early part of his career, it's clear to me he's starting to hit the ball a whole lot better, starting to get a whole lot more confident. And now you're seeing a tied 9th at the Shriners, tied 13th at the Zozo, tied 14th at the Worldwide Technology Championship, tied 8th at the Century. These are different styles of golf courses, different strengths of fields, and his game is translating to all of those. I think that's a really good sign. And with his ability with the flat stick, there's a really good chance that all of this comes together for him. And Harry Hall is a real contender early in the season. So that'd be the first place that I would start in the 8K range.
He's made both cuts at the Sony Open. Austin Eckler is my first click, I believe, a winner at the Worldwide Technology Championship. Then he followed that up with a T17 at the RSM Classic before the fall ended and finished T15 at the Century last week, in which he kind of just filled it up and lost all of his strokes around the green. I think it might be difficult to lose 4 strokes around the green at Waialae this week, but I'd like to see Austin Eckler try. But he's won twice. He can putt it. He's a flusher. Just don't hemorrhage a ton around the green. And I'll take my chances here.
Yep, he's becoming any week option because his game is the short game could use some work, but he hits it so well that you don't know how often he's going to, he could win despite a short game. Cause I think he can hit enough greens, hit high quality enough shots to win on a golf course like this before he fixes his short game. But Austin Eckler trended in the right direction. I think I got 2 more guys here that I want to mention. One is Taylor Pendrith, and just the run that he's been on has been really phenomenal since he started getting healthy. It's I think, a little underappreciated, but it's been just solid play. And he's done it in every area of the game at times. Now, he hasn't put it all together. Otherwise, we'd be talking about a Scotty Scheffler or Hideki Matsuyama here. We'd probably have 3 wins in this stretch. But he's shown a tremendous ability with his iron play. His putter has been very good over the last 6 months, 7 months. His driving has been fine. And on a golf course like this, I think you're clubbing down a lot as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for Taylor Pendrith here to put together another top 20 finish.
Yeah, he's been solid even without his 8th albatross of his career, which is just like fathomable. But he pulled it off last week at the Century. Anybody else, Greg?
Yeah. It's just plain and simple Luke Clanton.
Yeah. I was wondering if we were going to get there.
I just think I'm going to start him every week until he's a PGA Tour member.
And then just start him every week when he is a PGA Tour member.
Yeah. Well, at that point he gets into the fray. His name takes on a different, we'll start to do a little more analysis. This is like, let's just be early on this guy. Mm-hmm. And 8,400 is a price tag we're not going to get for very long on him. I'm surprised we're getting that this week. The ball striking ability is phenomenal. We've seen in this period of time perhaps a little weakness in the short game. on a golf course like this. While we've seen great short game players win, I think you can work around it, with flat greens and things like that. I think Luke Clanton has everything that it takes to contend here, all the firepower needed, even though it doesn't require distance and he has plenty of it. This is really on his youthful exuberance, excitement to play. And, he has his eyes on trophy at this point. And I still don't know what kind of putter he is, but I know that it can get hot. So there's a lot of reasons to like Luke Clanton. And right now, if he's playing, he's almost an auto click for me.
He's got that swag, Greg. He's just super confident, not scared of anything. He's going to go out there and just play a little bit of golf. And that ends up being pretty good. Now, I'm dying to get to this range. I'm very excited about this range. This is the $7,000 range. There's 44 golfers here, so I'm obviously not going to name them all. I think that there are teams to be made out of this group. I think that I think that I could make a lot of great squads without moving from these 44. So just to give you an idea, Billy Horschel, Cam Davis, Chris Kirk, Mackenzie Hughes at the top. The middle of the range, Berger, Eric Cole, Thomas Dietrich. The bottom of the range at $7,000, even a little bit bigger, Rico Hoey, Lee Hodges, Gary Woodland, a handful of other guys too. But the gaps in between those guys that I mentioned seem to be just really, really solid here, Greg.
I wrote down 8 guys,
okay.
And being this early in the season, I think there's good reason to add more to the list. Like you said, making teams out of just this range. If you put a filter into, your custom model on rickrungood.com, made it just the $7,000 range, you could make 150 lineups with some pretty darn good players all in this range that don't really feel out of place in a field like this. That's the crazy thing. There's not a huge difference this early in the season between Cam Davis and let's say Ben Griffin or Austin Eckroat or Robert McIntyre. I don't think there's a huge difference there. So Cam Davis is a great place to start for me. We've talked about this a lot through his career. He did go through a little slump at the end, in the middle of last season, maybe in all of last season, except for the win at the Rocket Mortgage. But he's shown an ability to perform on golf courses like this. He finished tied 13th with a silly 2-stroke penalty. It really was a top 5 performance out of Cam Davis last week. Gained strokes through the bag. I love his style of play on a golf course like this. I love the upside with him as well.
If you missed it, he hit the wrong ball. Who was his partner?
Will Zalatoris.
Yeah, they hit each other's golf ball.
Yep, in the fairway.
Shocking. And
both $300,000.
Yeah, both incurred a 2-shot penalty and dropped them pretty significantly down. I mean, 2 shots in an event like that goes a long way. So yeah. Cam Davis, T13, when all is said and done. All right, let's go back and forth here. I offer up Mackenzie Hughes. So when I ran this model of the best course fit, Mackenzie Hughes was at the top of that list. And basically what it comes down to is his biggest weakness, the driver, might not be a huge weakness here if he can keep it in play. The rest of his game is very, very sharp. We saw that at the Nedbank. We saw it at the RSM Classic. We saw it at times at the President's Cup. It seems like every other match he was unstoppable. And that's the model eats that stuff up. Played well at Napa as well. So Mackenzie Hughes is my nomination here.
Very strong option. I looked at him. And it's really hard to ignore, especially just the finishing positions, right? They're really strong, which I like. I'm not crazy about his record here. He doesn't putt well here. Putted well here.
Course fit and course history are very different. Mackenzie Hughes has not played well here.
No, and he specifically hasn't putted well here. You're talking about he's got 6 starts here. He's lost strokes putting in 4 of them. 3 of those he have been more than a shot and a half.
Yeah.
but losing on the greens. Now he has had a week where in 2021 he gained nearly 6. He gained over 6 his first start in 2017. So he can do it. He hasn't putted very well here in the past.
Best finish T19 that came in 2021. So
he does seem like he's a better player now.
I would hope so, but it does worry me a little bit. I'm not going to lie about that.
Yes, that's the big concern for me. So I'll offer one now. You're going to love it. I'm sure he's on your list. Daniel Berger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Coming off tied second at the RSM Classic in his last start, a bunch of made cuts before that, playing pretty well all the way across the board. Hasn't had any real glaring weaknesses. Just seems like he's trending into the Daniel Berger of old. And this seems like a great golf course for that.
It is. Now he's played here a lot, but not a lot recently. 6 starts, but they go back to 2015. And the most recent start was 2021. Has never missed a cut here. Has 3 top 15 finishes. His most recent finish is a T7. And I agree with you. This is trending in the right direction. So Daniel Berger is finally getting his legs underneath him a little bit. Okay. I offer up Joe Highsmith at the bottom of this range.
He's on my list as well.
All right. $7,100. We talk about him a lot, so I don't think I need to spend as much oxygen here. Made changes with the putter. That has turned around. The RSM Classic, he lost strokes putting, but the unmeasured round on Friday at the Plantation Course was his best round. I'm going to assume he probably putted pretty well that week, but even without it, T11, 5th, T16, and 6th in his last 4. Just going to be playing Joe Highsmith until something happens.
I love what he's done with the putter, but I think what he showed at the RSM is that floor is a whole lot higher these days than it used to be. So I'm right there with you on Highsmith. Let's go to, there's just so many guys that I think are playable here. I'll go in the middle of this range, and I like the guys at 7,300. Let's go with Patrick Rodgers. Okay. Patrick Rodgers has the combo, like we always talk about, driver and putter.
Yeah.
So I love what he does on the greens here. He's traditionally putted well here in his last 2 starts. It's led to some made cuts.
Yeah.
I think he's been hitting the ball a little bit better. He's getting a little closer with his ball striking. He put in a lot of work in his iron play, wants to be a little more aggressive because he hits a ton of greens in regulation, but doesn't really gain a whole lot of strokes. And he says that's because he's a little conservative into greens. I'm curious to see if he turns up the aggression a little bit, but in his last 3 starts, we got a T24, a T9, and a T17. I think that he's a good fit, and I'm looking for an improvement to start to take shape here with his iron play.
Yeah, love it. 3 consecutive top 25 finishes, 4 in his last 5 starts. I will offer up, where is he? Matt McCarty. And this is, so he wins the Black Desert. He misses 2 cuts. Then he finishes T53 last week, and it was pretty ugly. I'm going to just trust what I know about Matt McCarty, which is not a lot, but I know that he's a winner. I know that he can go low. I know that the way that he played on the Korn Ferry Tour was a more prime Webb Simpson way, which is like be in the fairway, though you're not very long, hit a ton of greens in regulation, make a lot of putts. And I think that fairway through green aspect for this week, as the stock has it's not bottomed out, but it's definitely dipped after the victory. I think this is a good time to buy. So I'm going to go with Matt McCarty.
Okay. A lot of trust there. Because I'm
trust.
kind of feeling things like my Matt McCarty stock. I'm feeling it dip a little bit.
He
didn't make
my list. I hope you are wrong, but I might be buying high still. Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong too. I really hope I'm wrong. I'm going to go a little higher up the price, up the board here. Maybe not where's McCarty price? No, a
76.
little lower than McCarty. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to go to 74, and I'm going to go to Seamus Power.
Oh, okay.
All right. Seamus Power had a really good run from like the FedEx St. Jude Championship. He played in the fall, and he played really nicely in the fall before withdrawing at the RSM Classic. I love what he's done on the greens. I think that's been a really consistent aspect for him. He last year he lost 9 strokes putting in this event and still made the cut. Early in his career, his record kind of suffered here. He didn't hit the ball very well. I think he's a much better ball striker now. I think his game could really hold up, and I don't expect him to lose 9 strokes putting. And for reference, in his previous 5 starts, he had gained strokes in 4 of them, and lost less than a stroke in the one he lost strokes. So I think it's really good. I think he could putt really well here, and last year was an anomaly. And the year before that, in 2022, the start before that, he finished tied 3rd. So I like Seamus Power here.
Yeah, he has had a very interesting run of events or starts or finishes at the Sony Open. Okay, how many more do you have from your list of 8, Greg?
I have. Well, there's 2 more. There's actually 3 more on here.
Okay,
which I can just fire off.
Fire them at me.
So I got Michael Kim,
$7,300.
$7,300. Been hitting the ball beautifully. He's coming off of 4 straight top 30 finishes, and 3 of those are top 12 finishes. I love the recent performance from him, and that's really what I'm leaning on there.
Good stuff.
Nico Echeverria is another one. And I'm just feeling really confident with him in the putter change. This feels like he's turned over a new leaf. He putted well last week, although it wasn't a great performance. I think he'll be a little more comfortable in this field on this golf course. And the last one is my boy, who I talk about seemingly every Monday, is Rico Hoey at 7,000 flat. I just love his game and think he's matured into a much better player. And the ball striking numbers definitely span that out.
You know the last time you missed a cut, Greg?
U.S. Open?
U.S. Open.
Yeah.
And I mean, these results, listen, he's not winning because he's not winning every week. His name's not Scotty Scheffler, but hasn't missed a cut since the U.S. Open. A handful of top 10 finishes, even more top 25s. The stat profile looks very, very green. The putter is even getting back on track. He's gained throughout the bag in his last 2 fully measured events, maybe longer than that. We don't have the full shot length breakdown for some of these. So yeah, Rico Hoey playing some great golf right now. His history at the Sony, not good, but as we say a lot, much better golfer now.
Yeah, totally different player. So I'm willing to take a risk on that. So that's 8. That's 8 guys for me. And you added a couple that weren't even on my list.
I think we could conceivably make lineups from that range alone. But I also think that is a huge drop off to this range, because I think like you just said, we had Rico Hoey at $7,000, which I feel pretty darn good about. $100 cheaper, like Bud Cauley, CT Pan, like that's not getting me super excited. If you go down to the middle of this range, it's Sam Ryder, Luke List, and then the mid-price golfers for this week include Ryan Palmer, Matsuyama, not Hideki Matsuyama. That is not like a typo and a mispriced or anything. Peter Malnati is 6,100. So I think that there is a significant drop-off here.
I think so too. That being said, I still wrote down a bunch of names.
Okay.
A lot of these guys are, well, we don't have PGA Tour starts from.
Correct.
Right. A handful. We got Korn Ferry Tour starts. So a number of them actually look pretty good on paper if you look at finishing positions. And I do think it's a little challenging to differentiate some of these guys that qualified for the PGA Tour through the Korn Ferry Tour last year. It's almost like one of them is going to play well. I just don't know who, and it's hard to decide because you don't have those advanced metrics. So to make a long story short, a lot of these are more guesses, options. more so than full backing. If I really had my way, my lineups probably won't have a 6K guy.
Okay.
All right. So like Grayson Sig, not a Corn Ferry Tour player, but I'm pretty comfortable with what he's done lately. He missed
6,800.
Yep, 6,800. He missed the cut at the RSM, but before that, he was tied 11th at the Black Desert, tied 23rd at the Shriners, tied 9th in Bermuda. And the other thing is, if memory serves me, yep, he's made 3 cuts here at the Sony. No good finishes, but 3 for 3.
Yep.
So he was on my list. And another guy that you may know would be Ben Silverman, who I've just seen a guy that's made some cuts and he's performed in every area of the game at some point. There's definitely been some weaknesses, but Ben Silverman could be an option. It's kind of a blah pick. Tied 18th last year here at the Sony. 2 missed cuts in the starts before that.
He's only missed 1 cut since the Byron Nelson. So he's been getting to the weekend, which is pretty much what you're looking for here. I'm excited for Frankie Sappin. So we're going to get the Corn Ferry Tour grad who won the Nationwide Children's Hospital Championship 2 starts ago, then finished 5th at the Corn Ferry Tour Championships, had himself a very good year down there. Everybody's very excited for Frankie. He is now getting after it. So he's like, I'll be clicking his name a lot this year and we'll see what happens.
6,600. Yeah. Great option. Kevin Roy is another guy, not quite as young. He's, I believe, 34 years old. He's at 6,700. He finished tied 2nd, miscut, tied 7th, tied 13th in his last 4 Corn Ferry Tour starts. That's a sign of some pretty solid form. And then, there's like this guy, is it Mao?
Matsuyama?
No. William Mao.
Oh yeah, William Mao. Sorry, you got me super excited.
Yeah, it's I'm sorry for the mispronunciation, but it's Mouw.
Yeah.
He's got 2 tied seconds in his last 5 starts on the last 4 starts on the Corn Ferry Tour. I don't know.
Yeah, if we're going by headshots, he looks like a player.
Yeah. Braden Thornberry won the Corn Ferry Tour Championship.
Yeah, there are a lot of good, Harry Higgs is back again. Like Isaiah Salinda plays well. Like some of these guys are going to be in the mix. I don't necessarily know which ones they are, so we're just going to fire some.
That's the hard thing
down there.
I got one more that I want to throw at you.
Yeah,
and this is more of a back in than any of the others, with a huge caveat. It's at 6,200. Okay, this is how low would you go? And it's Yuta Sugiura.
Okay, got him.
I'm just looking at the starts that we have. It's very few.
Yes.
But finished tied 62nd at the PIF Saudi International. But before that, tied 6th at the Zozo. Tied 7th at the ISPS Handa Championship. 14th at the International Series Macau. And 34th in miscut in his 2 other events that we have on record. I know that's from like March of last year. But with the Zozo being in October, this guy could just be a flat out player.
I believe he either is still an amateur or just turned pro within the last, I want to say like the last year or so. Because he got pretty high up on the amateur rankings. I'm trying to find it. But yeah, you're right. He's played a couple of events all over the globe and doesn't have a lot of them. But when he plays well. Because I don't think he has a lot of status anywhere. But yeah, he's ranked inside the top 170 in the world right now.
He doesn't finish outside the top 15. So look, that's a complete dart throw. But with all this, I mean, the 9K range, the 8K range, the 7K range, we could fill your lineups there. And if you want to differentiate a little bit, maybe you drop down and play someone like Yuta, 6,200.
Yeah. So what we're missing here is he crushes the Japan Golf Tour, like crushes it. He's got 3 wins in the last 13 months, a couple of other top finishes, then the stuff that you're seeing on the screen with the Zozo and the ISPS Handed Championship. So he's branching off from
Gamer.
Yeah, exactly. Before we get out of here, I need you to help me set my fantasy lineup for this week. So I got to pick 4 golfers, Greg, out of these 14. And it's the only scoring system is money earned. That's it.
Okay.
So we agree.
This is season long?
This is season long. Yes. So we agree Robert McIntyre has to be in, right? Like,
I think it's really hard to leave him off.
And probably
He's in for me.
And probably Billy Horschel. He's like a top 20 player in the world. Which leaves, okay, so here this leaves like 2 more spots for Berger, Nico Echeverria, Frankie Sappin, Lucas Glover, Joe Highsmith, Rico Hoey, Ben Coles, or Matt McCarty. A lot of those guys are the same.
Yeah. And, I want to work Joe Highsmith in there. He would probably be the guy that I like really want to get in there.
Yeah, he's been so good.
I'm not, there's no way Daniel Berger is coming out.
But I also feel like I don't really want to play Billy Horschel, but I also feel like I probably drafted him 8 rounds higher than Joe Highsmith.
Yeah. Let's go through this and take a real look at Billy Horschel here.
Okay.
It hasn't been, but what's Billy Horschel's price on DraftKings? It's
7,900. Yeah, because he's been bad since the win.
Yeah, he hasn't been hitting it great. Century wasn't great, but let's see what he's done at the Sony.
I hope it's bad.
No, it's not. It's not great, but tied 18th last year, miscut, tied 36th, tied 7th, 68th, 54th, cut.
I could get away from that, quite honestly. That is not that. So if I go Highsmith over Horschel, so that would be Robert McIntyre, Daniel Berger, Nico Echeverria, Joe Highsmith. I would be sitting Billy Horschel, Rico Hoey,
Frankie Sapan,
I'm okay sitting Matt McCarty because I think that could go sideways. We'll see what Frankie even turns into. I guess I could go with this. It's really just a Highsmith over Horschel.
Is that? Look, what's the strat? You're playing 4 guys. I mean, you almost have to approach this. I haven't done season long golf. In fantasy football, it's pretty much you play the best players. Like,
yeah, but usually,
I don't know if Billy
it's obvious.
Is Billy Horschel matchup proof? Like you talk about in fantasy football.
I see what you're saying. Like Billy Horschel's got like he's if he was a running back, he was held to 30 yards last week, and now he's going up against the 2nd ranked defense.
Yeah. It's like, well, if that was Derrick Henry,
right? You
matchup proof. You play him no matter what. I don't know if Billy Horschel fits that category. So
I agree with you.
But it's hard to play Joe Highsmith over Billy Horschel.
Is Nico a must play? I agree that Daniel Berger is not coming out of this lineup. Robert McIntyre is not coming out of this lineup.
No, Nico's not a must play. I'm high on him now. I'm low on Billy Horschel, but what matters more, the trend or where we sit in the market?
That's what makes this so interesting.
That is about as brutal as it can get, because I don't like Billy Horschel this week. I like Echeverria and I like Highsmith.
I'm just gonna play him. It's week 1. I agree. I agree. I will. If I play Billy Horschel and he misses the cut, I'm gonna be sitting here on Friday like I'm such an idiot. And if he wins, you know what? Well, now I've got a guy who's more valuable down the road, right? And
you need Nico and Highsmith to make the cut.
And
then you can sleep at night.
Yeah. I had Bezadenhope, but he withdrew from this event. And then I've got Rory and Tommy Fleetwood for when we start getting to those events. So I've got, some time.
I like that little squad you got. It's not flashy.
It's not flashy. It's volume, baby.
Rory and Fleetwood in the big events are like week in and week out heavy hitters, auto plays.
I'm pretty sure I definitely had Rory. So I won this league last year, and it's a redraft. And I'm pretty sure I definitely had Rory. I'm pretty sure I had Rory and Tommy last year, and they were just like, they were killers for me.
Yeah. You just keep on rolling them out, and then you get a couple of other guys like your Daniel Berger, who could be a menace this year. And you just cycle those guys in the good matchups.
Yes. Yeah. I got Berger late, and I'm like, dude, he might just end up being like what he could be like a top 20 guy this year.
So could McIntyre.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm stoked. I'm stoked about this team.
Right. It's a good squad. And Highsmith could become, like, he's not in the signature events. It's almost a good thing.
Like Joe Highsmith needs to become Davis Thompson.
Yes.
And I'll be thrilled.
So you had Davis Thompson last year.
Yeah, I had a lot of Davis Thompson last year.
And did he win? You obviously played him in
he's like a league. He's a league winner. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm all amped up. We will be back on Tuesday because we're going Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Sunday. That's the cadence for now until we get back on track. But big thanks to producer Josh doing all the hard work behind the scenes. That right there, it's Greg DuCharme. You can find him at The Real GFD, and you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.